with the mad rush for picking forms and returning them, expressing interest to stand at various political positions. But beneath all this is something, the big elephant in the room, about internal democracy within the party that has come, within the parties, that has come to a big test with quite a number of questions emerging from the recently held processes, starting with the Democratic Party that had quite a democratic, rather a dramatic and chaotic delegates conference. Then the spotlight shifted to the National Unity Platform, whose delegates conference equally had a number of questions. The Democratic Front has also announced that towards the end of this year, rather this month, they will be holding a delegates conference, one of a kind. The party in its early stages. But at the same time, UPC is also on the radar as Dennis Enap, one of the contenders for the UPC presidency, drags the UPC president, Honorable Jimmy Akena, to court, questioning the manner in which the delegates conference, rather the village elections, were held in Lango. The big questions that arise: one, are parties preaching water and drinking wine in aspiring to be democratic, yet fail on the democratic credentials? And what impact does this have as we gear up to 2026 elections? Joining me tonight is Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda, Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality, and the spokesperson of PFF. Good to have you, and a very good evening.
Thank you, Simon. And to those who are following this program.
In our behind-the-scenes chat, I was asking, what's your party symbol? Do you still flash the V, or?
The V, which is a victory sign, is universal. You are required under the law, when you're registering a party, to reserve a symbol. But those things sometimes they end there. And then you can pick on something else that is more popular, that is universal. So we are still using the V sign. This is a universal symbol.
Still using blue as your color? Still using V? You only ditched the key for the phone?
Yeah, because that's more specific. And the Electoral Commission would never have allowed us to register a political party that has symbols similar to those on their register.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Major Chinove James, Ambassador. Retired, yes. One of the commissioners at the NRM's Electoral Commission. Good to have you, and a very good evening.
Thanks, Simon, and greetings to our viewers. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Honorable Fred Mukasambide, the man who works with his dictionary. Good to have you. The Vice President of the Democratic Party. You're serving your second?
This is the
third. Third?
Yes.
Controversially?
No, depending on who is describing. You know, they say a bat hangs itself upside down, but scientifically it believes when it sees you walking upright, it begins to think you are the one walking upside down. It is usually dependent on who is describing, but there was no controversial. I equally also greet my colleagues, and Simon, thank you for always considering to invite me. Good evening, viewers.
Well, good to have you. Honorable Aisha Commander, the Deputy Secretary General of the National Unity Platform. Nice to have you, and a woman member of Parliament for Butambala. I hope you've returned your expression of interest, or retiring.
It's my pleasure being here. Hi, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you. The President of the Uganda People's Congress, the Red Party, Honorable Jimmy Akena. Nice to have you, and a very good evening.
Thank you very much for hosting me. It's great to be here.
Who owns Red? Is it you or Noop?
The Red has been at least defined as far as UPC is concerned, which is the lifeblood of the nation. It's also our national flag, so it is something which is part and parcel of all of us.
Perhaps I should actually start with you. Today, we were served with a copy of a court petition challenging the manner in which you conducted village elections that would elevate you to the presidency of Uganda People's Congress. What's your take? From Denison up.
Now, one, I cannot go into the detail because I think that would be sub judice. If I am a subject of a case which has been filed, it will be sub judice. What I can tell you is that as UPC, we are preparing for the general election. The processes within the party will be followed to the detail. We have constitutional requirement. The first stage for presidential candidate is to get 1/3 of the endorsement of the district conferences, which we are going to go through. But we have also used this opportunity to get some other work done in that we are now preparing for the general election. So we're putting our house in order and putting all the opportunities which are available to us to work using this campaign period to organize ourselves. So that is going to proceed. There's, I don't see any hindrance why we should not proceed ahead. But everybody, whoever feels aggrieved, has an opportunity to go and look for regress through the courts
What
of
explains the irony that you announced village, rather countrywide elections, and instead you concentrated on conducting elections, village elections in Langwa region?
No. When we announced the countrywide election, we announced a timetable. We do not have access to the coffers, or the national coffers, where some other parties have, where they want to hold it on the same day. We cannot hold it on the same day. We are limited with the resources available and also the human resource. So what we announced was a systematic way in which we're going to go through that process. And region by region, we're going to go through and we're going to complete the process. Some regions have more candidates, have more issues which to deal with, but it's not limited to one particular area. The elections are ongoing and they're going to continue ongoing until we complete the process.
Well, very interesting. Honorable Semuju, I could start with you. I believe you've closely watched.
I thought you had started with President Yakena.
You've closely watched everything unfolding within political parties. Democratic Party started the chapter of a very contentious delegates conference, then followed NUP. We're now looking at the UPC. What do you read between the lines on how parties are conducting themselves internally?
You see, the political parties in Uganda, many of them are still built around individuals, many of them. And because, and I said here when we had issues within our former party, the FDC, that the NRM, with all their shortcomings, they would at least announce a program, organize elections and cheat them. But at least there will be a trail that they went through elections. Mm. The 16 years I have been in FDC, we were organizing elections. And you will know that village elections are going to be conducted on this day, and they will be conducted. And then those elections will lead to formation of committees at all levels, sub-county, districts, the National Delegates Conference, and we will elect leaders until when the NRM interfered with that process. In the party where I am now, the People's Front for Freedom, we will have interim arrangements because we have just been registered. But we will go and have those elections from villages to many of the parties. You hear them holding delegates conferences. You don't hear them holding elections from village. I am happy the Honorable Akena said the they're going to have village elections. For parties, the requirement in the Constitution and the Political Parties and Organizations Act, the requirement is that you must be internally democratic. You must also, at the registration which you have just gone through, you must be national in character. And that national in character is measured by your application to register being endorsed by 50 people from at least 2/3 of the country. But we need to be honest with ourselves that some of the parties, they exist in some regions, some sub-regions, and they don't exist throughout the country. I remember the last time we had a meeting here, I will not mention the district, people will be angry with me. We had a sub-region whose delegates, I was told they were from Kampala. In fact, when we were planning, we hadn't planned for them. But they showed up, and you have to provide transport refund, to accommodation.
Only to realize that they're still within.
That they are just here. Professor Joko appeared before a parliamentary committee on legal and parliamentary affairs that was processing the Political Parties and Organizations Act. I'm not sure that was in 2000, but before the parties eventually returned. And he said it is redundant to have a requirement in the law requiring parties to be national in character. He said the tribal party is okay, a one theme party is okay. He said a party that wants to take over power in Uganda will, as of absolute necessity, be national. But he said all parties are not interested in taking power. You can have a party that is pursuing one issue, like you see them in Europe, parties that are interested only in climate change issues and so on and so forth. So therefore the question you asked, I am an interested party because in Uganda now, political parties that are represented in parliament are all sponsored, at least with some money, some taxpayers' money. But also we should even be more interested because one of these parties will one day take over power in Uganda. I remember General Muntu in FDC kept saying, you cannot give what you don't have. If you are not democratic internally, you will never give people democracy.
So how do you score, take for instance, NUP on their recent delegates conference and the Democratic Party?
As I said, I don't want to be general, I don't want to, people will feel hard because I am a competitor. But as I said, and I want to keep it as general as I can, that many of the parties, you hear them at the conclusion of an exercise which you are not sure it took place. Because you hear announcement of dates of a delegates conference, you don't know how people went there. And that's why I said in FDC, we had those elections, we will announce, we will follow. In the PFF where I am, we will have them. And I don't want to blame parties. The Electoral Commission has a duty. Because each party submits a copy of the Constitution at registration. And this election, there was, I'm not sure that it was Kenya or Tanzania. In fact, they had assigned the National Commission to help parties conduct elections. Because these parties are supposed to be regulated. That's why they submit copies of their constitution. So there are parties that you'll hear them organizing a delegates conference, but you don't know where those delegates came from. No elections at a village level, no elections at a sub-county level, no elections at any other level other than at the National Delegates Conference. So there are issues.
Honorable Aisha Kabanda, and I believe this goes directly to the National Interplatform. There was a delegates conference that was organized in haste. In just a matter of 1 week after the announcement, people turned up as delegates. Don't you find that rather awkward?
Unless you were part of the organizers, I don't know how we would explain that was organized in a haste. What lacked that should have been?
In just a space of 1 week.
Do you know how long we took organizing it?
If you could explain to us.
Okay. maybe you would have asked me to explain, then you make a conclusion. First, let me begin where Honorable Semuju ended. How are these parties registered? Okay? When you talk about the delegates conference, this delegates conference we're talking about, what constitutes membership of that delegates conference? Okay? We took advantage of a situation. The NUP took advantage of the manipulations of the NRM when they registered political parties then, which they thought they were parties they were going to put in the pockets or in the basket somewhere and be able to use them when they desire. Okay? They registered a political party that we know that had a very funny constitution. We all agree the constitution of the political party that we inherited, which was NURP then, NURP, was a very funny constitution where even the president nominates people to be part of NEC. That's the constitution we inherited. And that's the constitution we have chosen to amend and have it fit the democratic times in which we would like to see and want to live. And what has happened? We've been taken to court, and the Electoral Commission has refused to gazette, actually, our amended constitution. Now, what do people want us to do? To stop working? First of all, what was this delegates conference meant to be? The delegates conference includes the executive board, okay, members of NEC, elected leaders, okay, and elected leaders include members of parliament. It includes municipal mayors, LC5 chairpersons. Now, if the elected leaders of the party that we are talking about now do not spread over the whole country, should we not have our delegates conference until we have them spread over? Because there's no single member of parliament that was meant to attend this delegates conference and was excluded. There's no LC5 chairperson that was meant to attend and was excluded. There's no mayor that was meant to attend and was excluded. Every elected leader that was meant to be part of this delegates conference actually attended. It simply so happens...
Who is a delegate in NU?
That's what I've just explained. The delegates, first of all, include members of the executive board, okay? Those are the people who were elected, those ones see being elected last when you had a delegates conference, okay? It includes the NEC. NEC includes members of the executive board expanded by appointees of the president. It includes all members of parliament. Now, if we had a political party that had members of parliament that are 300 plus or 500, they would all have attended. It so happens that the members of parliament that we have, they actually, many of them come from Buganda. So when you say it's a regional delegates conference, would we go to borrow people from north and designate them as members of parliament? We wouldn't, okay? So whoever was meant to attend this delegates conference actually attended, save for a few who were not present.
This was billed as an extraordinary delegates conference.
Yes.
What made it extraordinary?
What made it extraordinary is that we actually included members of parliament, elected leaders that would not have been part of this delegates conference. When you look at this constitution, how it had been designed, the Kibalama constitution, it was a political party that was simply meant to depend on individuals. The president appoints people to work with. I am a Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General of the party, and I'm appointed by the president. Even when they made elections last time, my office is not among those out of whom elections were conducted. No, I'm appointed. Even this time, I assumed office again after being appointed. That's the constitution we have. It's not the one we desire. No, we have actually amended our constitution. But the times of the regime that is now has not given us space to do things the way we want them to be done. So we're not going to sit up. We're not going to sit back and wait and see and fold our arms.
Are you mindful of a clause in the old constitution on which you're operating that says in case of an ordinary delegates conference, notice of at least 14 days in writing shall be given for the convening of the meeting. This requirement of notice shall be dispensed with in the case of an extraordinary delegates conference, except where it is practical to give the notice.
I have not had people complain that a notice was not given. A notice was given. By the way, do you know that we actually put running papers? I think our people have a problem with reading. We even had to run in papers advertisements of people to come and apply for these positions, and it took more than 2 weeks.
No, it was a week. It was a week.
I don't think it was a week.
It was a week.
The first time it ran in Monitor, I think it was much earlier than you think it was. Even the notes boards of the political party, inside our political party offices, or the notes board, we put there that notes. It was there. Everybody knew. On our platforms, they knew there was this delegates conference.
Thank you. Honorable Mbide.
So for me, just to summarize this, people have branded our delegates conference as a funny delegates conference that will, I don't know. For me, I want to know, whom do you think we excluded, okay? That was meant to attend, and by manipulation we simply chose to exclude these people, because whoever was meant to be part of the delegates conference actually was there.
Honorable Mbide, how would you compare DP's delegates conference that turned out to be a talk of the town for the mess and the flows therein with the NUPS?
Thank you. I don't know how the NUPS was organized. But in Uganda, we no longer have public opinion. Mostly we have got published opinion. And now the publishers are majorly, the majority of publishers in Uganda are those that are not trained in doing so, because they are not members of mainstream media. It is usually called social media. So much of the information in Uganda is definitely served by and tainted by social media ludic. You know, persons that definitely will distribute any information pursuant to whether or not they have got smartphones. Smartphones are usually smarter than the owners. So the Democratic Party Delegates Conference had no flaws. However, we had security inconsistencies. And this could be explained. But one thing that I need to explain to the public is what actually was distributed and disseminated on social media. There was some fellow who was voting. You see, our vote, the contested positions were majorly 19. So everybody would be provided with 19 ballot papers, so that each ballot paper then would in seriatim be deposited in the substantive ballot box of the position you are going to vote for. Now, there was this guy who I think videotaped somebody who was dropping one of the ballot papers in the ballot box. But you see, the person video recording can make any unnecessary information disseminated and distributed to the whole world. So somebody says, "Una sulamu bululu." You know, by the time you can be able to video record freely, and you even remain with your telephone, and you have the same distributed, and there is no mention of any attempts by anyone to stop you from doing the same. In my opinion, I think that is a display of peace that existed during the voting of the Democratic Party. So I can safely tell you, one second challenge was...
So it passed the mark of a credible election.
Extremely credible. But what took place in Mbarara, you know, for us, our motto is truth and justice. What took place in Mbarara is the truth. The justice is what will have to be told to us by the courts of law, because those that are disgruntled have definitely run to the courts. So we will expect the justice. One major thing that we shall not tolerate is if the courts have told us what the result was, and you attempt to appeal, that will be an act of indiscipline on our part, and we shall not have any unnecessary delays with you. We will definitely get rid of you. Political parties are not, you know, there is no power in the political parties. Political parties are just wagons taking us to wherever we are going. Wagons are definitely, you know, if you want to drive a wagon to anywhere, it is a function of experience, knowledge, capacity. It is not a function of whether or not there are many people supporting you to drive. It is knowledge. So in Uganda, I think we have got a major problem, Simon. Because you see, when the NRM took power in 1986, the legal notice actually was to the effect that parties were banned. Parties continued to be banned up to the enactment of the 1995 Constitution. Wait, because I'm building a point of political immaturity of the masses in terms of how parties operate. Because there is a problem between independent individual opinion that individuals think remains sacrosanct against a decision of a party. Now, you cannot hold an independent view on a matter that the party has taken a decision on. However, you only hold it until such a time when it has been discussed. And when the party discusses and agrees against you, then the opinion you bear at that stage is whether you can remain in that party against your will or form another.
Okay, with the delegates conference that left the party fractured, because all the contenders came out grumbling, disgruntled that the process was not transparent. Do you look at DP as a party that you can write home about when it comes to matters of internal democracy?
And I think, let me be frank with the viewers, this is usually synonymous with us, players, political players in Buganda. We always make a mistake that usually pitches us against 3 major regions. Because in terms of electoral college politics, national, there are usually 4 regions. There is the central region, the eastern region, the northern region, and the western region. Now, what took place in the Democratic Party was the wrong politics played by those that thought that the central region held gladiatorial supremacy over other regions. And accordingly, it determined the result of 1 against 3. That is why they got 300 votes and the others got 900. A position we had never contemplated before heading to the delegates conference. It was a material discrepancy that was lodged at the subconscious level of the brains of those players that made them lose. So there is no problem in the Democratic Party.
Honorable Major retired Chinobe.
You see, in the question, no, I'm sorry. So what I thought the Honorable Mbide will help us understand are the processes. I have seen NRM militaristic as they are cheating elections. They have some registers. They can be contested, but they are there, so you can follow their process. So that's what for me I want to see in other parties.
I can explain what
registers are here, so that by the time you go for a delegates conference, the list of the delegates itself is not contested, because people will lose elections and then find the reasons.
DP is a
but
man in the morning.
sometimes we give them
on the election day.
No, Simon. If we are to be fair to both the Democratic Party and the public, the Democratic Party does not even need to give you a list of names. Our delegates are embedded in the offices they hold, right from village level to the National Executive Committee. For example,
you didn't need a register.
Members, you need one, you get one, but even if you don't, the members are known. Because if you're chairman of a district, you know you're a delegate. If you're a loser or a winner of a parliamentary election, you know you're a member.
Retired Major Chinobe.
If you're a member of the National Executive Committee, you know you're a member. So it is very easy.
What do you make of the drama and chaos within political parties as they conduct internal processes?
I don't know why you would want me to qualify it as a drama and confusion, but I just need to share what's happening in the NRM. And then maybe the viewers can decide what they want to call it. First of all of us as parties, we are governed by the principle in the Constitution that power belongs to the people. And they even try to elaborate how we go about it. But the Political Party and Organizational Act describes in detail how organizations that come into power are supposed to do that in a phrase which is called internal democracy. Now, it's about the degree of how you respond to that requirement and I don't want passing judgment because, for example, PFF is just a new party. Possibly they are right, they have not had that time. Maybe you just allow me to give our viewers the status of what the NRM does. The status of what the NRM does is that we have two lines of elections. All these geared towards enforcing the other requirement of power belongs to the people. Of course, they are parties with the slogans, people power, what power, they say it and they sing it, but in the actual practice, it's not actually what they do. But we
It's
may
not
not
what
have
they preach.
do sloganeering and preaching, but for us, we may not slogan about people power or people using the power or power belonging to them, but in practice, ours is a bottom-up arrangement. In our elections, we start with the party structures, and that's why on the 6th of May, we started with the lowest level of setting up our party structures. NRM has got 72,000 political villages, and every village has got an electorate, which is the entire village of members of the NRM. Then we go on to spread our leadership into sectors of the society that we think are important. That is maybe the women, the young people, the elderly, the disabled, the veterans, and all those. And now we constitute a leadership structure at the village, which is 30 members per village. Now, those 30, it's representative now from that level. Because at the village, when you elect the 30 delegates, they go to the parish, they elect another 30 to go to the sub-county, another 30 to the district. We have levels like municipalities until they climax at the city level, which is the equivalent of districts. And from there...
So you want to say you set the bar for eternal democracy?
We set the bar because we practice what we preach. We practice what we preach.
And you're the embodiment of people power, right?
It's the real people power because we empower the people. It's the real, it's not sloganeering. In actual practice, we allow only that we use a representative because you know the old forms of democracy would mean that you have all the other Ugandans, the 20 million members in our party, gather them in an arena which you cannot even...
Let me hear this again. NRM is the real people
It's the
power.
real concept of people power. The
rest are just sloganeering.
The rest is, well, yes.
Honorable Bide seems to have a question for you.
No,
can I take
the point to where he picked it from? Because for him, his delegates conference has already taken place. So I was building it up to where we get the national conference, which is the supreme organ of the delegates conference. So from the districts, we go to the national conference, and that national conference has got conferences of the leagues, which we have mentioned. Only that at the district level, we add on 2 more, the workers and entrepreneurs, because at the village levels, those levels are not fully developed. So by the time you get... I've mentioned the veterans.
They also start from the village.
Yes, even veterans start from the village. I don't know how many
veterans we have in the country.
We have a very big number because we expanded the membership of the Veterans League. At first, we used to have only the veterans who are in UPDF, but we have extended it to all people who served in the armed forces, retired police officers, retired prisons and all those. So, it doesn't have to, you know, when you create a provision, when you create, for example, I'll give you an example. We have a provision for the disabled. The majority of our disabled, apart from those either who get accidents or in the war, they were disabled as a result of immunizable diseases. Because of improved services around that area, it is very difficult to get disabled people at every village. It was not very easy. By the way, even some veterans who had problems to get them to the village, at the villages, because some villages don't have...
Are you tracking how other parties are doing their things?
We are still
what's your assessment of them?
We are trying, I'm still giving our viewers the structural arrangement of their NRM as a mass party, and the level at which we get the National Delegates Conference. Now, the National Delegates Conference is the one which will generate all the rest of the leaders of the party.
You build from the ground.
From the village, the lowest unit, up to...
There are some positions that are ring-fenced. Some positions, they are not contestable, they are ring-fenced, and they say the people power.
Posts, you let me know
people power, the chairman is ring-fenced, the vice chairman is ring-fenced.
At least you have a structure, unlike those. I know you
started qualifying your statement of people power.
Yes, but you ring first. Okay, let me finish my point. What I'm trying to say that for us, we elect, we don't select. leaders.
Who selects?
Who
Most of
doesn't
the
elect?
parties sit at the top, select those who are going to be in which position. As I speak today, we may not even know who is going to be in the topmost organ of the party, the SEC, until we get there. We have already gazetted the days of nominations of members who want to be in the Central Executive Committee of the party, and then the rest of the other members.
Is the party chairmanship under contest?
No, not yet.
Is it one of the slots that will be contested?
I want to give you a hint.
Or his vice.
I want to give you a hint that very soon you are going to see people vying for the Central Executive Committee, including those who want to contest as chairpersons of the party. The days have been mentioned. We are on the 26th of this month. We are holding expression of interest of those who want to participate in the second election. Can you let me pass on this information? On the 26th of this month, June, to the 1st of July, expression of interest of those who want to be members of SEC. And then on to the 2nd up to the 4th, we shall have elections. So just to keep your eyes on the screen and you see our nominations of all those people who want to compete. And then finally we shall go to the National Delegates Conference.
Well, I want to bring in Honorable Kena.
Yes.
Do you look at the NRM as the yardstick or the bar for internal democratic processes?
Definitely not. And I'll start from this position that we are put in a situation where under the NRM's democracy, as they try to define it, although as parties we went under severe restrictions for a long period of time, even up to today, a lot of the operations and functions of parties are restricted legally and also extra judicially. We are restricted on our activities. But the point which I want to really stress here is that for the recent past, Uganda has failed to hold the LC1 elections at that level.
Under NRM.
Under NRM in government, after 38 years, we are failing to hold LC1 elections. But us as political parties, we are expected to mirror that structure from village. And the reason given at a national level where we fail to hold elections at village level is lack of funds. The government of Uganda does not have funds to conduct LC1 elections across the country. And the LC1 is...
Can you look at the NRM grassroots election as an internal party event?
No, this point is very critical because an LC1 chair handles a lot of issues. If you want your ID, you want anything, you have to go through your LC1. But we failed to hold it. But as a political party, UPC is expected to mirror that from the village. DP is expected the same. PFF, who've joined us recently, are expected to do the same to carry that whole issue. They are failing themselves. Recently, okay, yes, they're saying they've had their elections. I need to ask, where did those funds come from? Is there how we're going to deal with this one? Because at a national level, Uganda, we have failed. Each time it's postponed. 6 months is postponed.
Yeah, but you should find it enviable that the NRM hold grassroots elections.
No. Let me give him
I have held
information. Which is
point of information.
First of all, I want. First of all,
you're coming in. You're
I
coming
was
back.
the one submitting, and I thought he was giving me information
Yes.
or questioning
No,
why.
I'm not given. You enforced yourself.
The point he has made about LOC1 elections, he has missed one point, that LOC1 officers are not part of the party structures. And that's why even in our elections, we provided flag bearers. That's one.
Okay.
Two,
those
elections.
Yes.
Simon,
wait a minute.
are we on the same program? Are we talking about the same thing? Which structure does not begin at the village? He has told NRM begins at the village, UPC will begin at the village. Why don't you
let me finish what I was telling you?
No, you are the one who's
if you were to ask why we did not have...
You certainly come back.
I was on the floor.
Yes.
Who is interrupting who? He's saying,
But
let me finish. I'm the one
No. It was his turn.
I was on the floor.
No. I just wanted
NRM,
you to make a point of information.
Understand, we're also here. We have our issues to make. It is not your monopoly to determine everything. The whole structure is a big issue which it causes a problem. Now, what we worked out, at least what I tried to work out within the confines of IPOD, was how can we improve the democracy? And we now expected from the funding, which was from government, we're able to have our annual meeting.
Yeah, but in all honesty, you've also conducted village elections in Lango.
In Lango, yes.
Yes, you've conducted village elections in Lango with zero interruption.
And he chooses to be zonal instead of going national.
Yes.
No, please.
Just a second.
Before you leave this point, I've told you that we are conducting a village election systematically because we don't have the resources.
Honorable, you announced that you are going to conduct elections between 12th and 19th.
We are in
and
the
you
process.
closed.
We are in the process. No, we have not completed. I'll tell you openly on national media. We have not completed.
Today is the 19th.
Whether you have a timetable,
Today is the 19th.
the timetable and the actual work, I'll tell you, we have not completed the work.
This is
We have not.
Honorable Bide,
yes.
I'll give you a minute before we take a break.
when you listen to Honorable Chinove, the viewers need to be told what he is doing when he praises the NRM for dealing with
correction.
being people-centered.
You'll come here.
No,
it's okay.
Let me first correct.
No, allow him make a submission.
You will come in.
Yeah.
I'm not praising anything.
But how
Each party
then-
was giving a status of how they
Okay,
practice.
fine.
It's not democracy.
Granted.
But
Yes.
your party is not an innocent party. It is generally really the fulcrum of politics in Uganda. So when we talk about you, you are not as if we are talking about the rest.
I entirely agree with you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So for you, what you are doing by praising the NRM is generally passing a post-mortem of what killed the other parties. It is the NRM. Why? There are two systems, and one of them has been adumbrated heavily by Honorable Akena. Access to the bottom, where you expect us to be, can only be allowed months to an election. So you cannot have a bottom up of other political parties except the NRM. Because we are not allowed access to that bottom.
Even the months you're talking
So you have
about
remained
are
at the
interrupting.
headquarters.
I mean, you have, except if you are magical.
Honorable Bide.
You go to the bottom today, and all you find at the bottom is what you gamble out with. You choreograph a process, and that is all that you end up with. That is number one. Number two, access to resources. What the NRM does is to establish, they call it broad-based. It's just bread-based. They establish a bread-based political system of prebendarism using the
So
resources.
you agree that your president extended
So-
some
so-
of the bread to enable you hold your delegates conference?
So,
Because
Honorable
it starts with
Chinove,
that.
what you are doing is to explain what actually killed all the other parties. To the extent that you even think you are explaining that your party itself did not die in the process. It did. You were asked here
Even the
whether the chairman is worried that
fundraising
anybody
was
is going to compete
curtailed
with
by the
you.
law.
It is
Even
not
the
true.
fundraising was
Well, we'll
curtailed.
take a very short break, and the question